Good afternoon, Marion. We're just checking our systems out here. Cody's in here with me. I don't know if anybody else is going to be joining or not, but we're just checking our systems here to make sure that everything is good. We have several people that have expressed interest in coming on, elected officials, even at the state level. So that should be fun. I know we've been in touch with Mr. McCants and, of course, Cody is part of our team now. Historian, it's so cool having a historian as part of your team as media. Wow, he's told us all kinds of fun stuff. Going back over council minutes back into the 70s, I think I'm back to 82 by now. Um, it should be a good time. Of course, we're looking into finances first, but we're finding all kinds of other fun things in you know, the records, which are fun and very, very interesting. Um, we're just checking our bandwidth and seeing how it performs on the server. This is all in-house stuff. So we're going to do some screen sharing. You see here, this is our backend system. It's a cloud run interface on actually two servers plus one cloud server as a backup system. Messengers, broadcast systems. I turned the AI off because it's very resource intensive. This is my son Javen's training portal down here. Marion trainee. It's kind of a staging environment. He's getting quite good at running all of this stuff too. He's 10 years old. So that's pretty neat. I will show you. This is our chat. We're running off of Rocket Chat. Again, it's fully hosted on our systems and quite stable. Cody, did you have anything to add, sir?
No, I think it looks really good, man. Um, and what's nice is that when we do the shows, you'll be able to pull up uh, Google or articles, or if we have clips from council meetings, then we'll be able to, play them uh, during the show. So I think that's going to be um, a really great way to do it.
Right. Yeah, we can share anything really. It's pretty cool. So there's the web page, and we can go into whatever we want and look at it, talk about it. We can also cast videos from YouTube directly to the screen or whatever else we want to do. As you know, you've been in this before, once before. Should be fun.
Yeah, I think so.
It looks like everything's good on the front end. We're broadcasting at approximately 8,900 kilobits per second on dual 10 gig Ethernet cards. So yeah, we're good. We're ready to go, I think. What do you think, sir?
I think we are.
Sweet. All right.
So
Well,
now, did you need to test it to see how many people can be on? Not that we're going to have, I wouldn't anticipate, a ton just, at any given time, but
I can kind of gauge it from, um, you know, looking at the stats on the server. We're not even, I'm broadcasting in super high definition and it's not even hitting 20%. So if we added another five people, we'd probably be at 50%. So probably, I'd say we could probably maximum 20 people in here at one time. We might get a little crowded though, so I'd suggest five or less. I mean,
yeah,
including
yeah.
team. Yeah, I think we're good. I mean, it's got whiteboards and all kinds of fun stuff. It's just like Skype, pretty much.
Now, is this on Facebook Live right now?
It is, yeah, I'm watching it. The tablet's right in front of me. I've got like the geek super kingdom over here. I've got servers and laptops and tablets and phones, and I'm actually using my my Note 20 5G for my webcam because of course Blade servers don't usually have webcams.
Yeah, well, it looks good.
So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna look at the stats here and see what's up. I'm
And
gonna
we're
try.
doing our first show as a recorded show, right?
I,
Not live.
I think so. I know that a couple of counselors were pretty anxious to come on, so I want to try to get them on as fast as I can. Um, it might be easier to do those guys in a virtual environment, but we can certainly sit down with, like, I know we've talked to some state candidates for office, and that might be a better sit down recorded, uh, interview. Yeah, I just turned us up to almost 11,000 kbps, and it didn't even go up maybe 3%. I have a graphics accelerator, a Tesla graphics accelerator. So in addition to the graphics card, we have another, I guess you'd call it a graphics card in there to help boost everything. That's for the AI mostly, but it comes in handy for stuff like this.
And then you should probably let people know, I know you already have, but a reminder that all the episodes will be housed on the YouTube channel,
Right.
right?
Yeah, because Facebook, I don't know when they started doing that. It was sometime between, when we got out of the game real quick for a little bit, and they went to that 28-day deletion policy. So they're not housed on there permanently anymore, from what I understand. So I think YouTube would be the best bet. But we're dual broadcasting right now on the YouTube and the Facebook at the same time.
Oh, it's live on YouTube?
It should be.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we're not even touching uh we're not even touching peaks on the server stats. Um, so we're looking real good.
Good.
Like I said, this is all in-house stuff. We're using a bridge over to Jitsi on the back end, a Rocket Chat program, and it kind of brings the video into where we can control it better and encrypt it and keep it safe and all that good stuff.
So who's going to be our first guest?
I'm not sure. I've reached out to, I know I sent one message to a counselor today. I'm going to keep on doing that. I've actually had really good luck with the counselors, responding to us this time. Took them a little while, but I understand. A lot of them weren't around when we were doing it last time, and even the ones that were around when we were in media last time. Tracy Cooper Ryder, Coach Cooper Ryder, was our face of the reporting back then. Um, I was busy trying to keep our systems up because we were constantly having problems. I'm not sure who or what, but I mean, Zach saw it, Ed saw it, Landon saw it, Melissa saw it. Just all kinds of cyber. I guess you'd call them cyber attacks. I mean, I know Weslyn Davis just had an episode on her page where I woke up one morning and we talked about this in the group chat. I'm sure you remember, um, where
Yeah, I'm the one that
everybody,
reached out to her.
right? So we all of us got invites from an opponent's page, and we were all like, why would she be sending out invites to her opponent? That doesn't make any sense. So later in the day, we found out that, and I think you're the one that told us, that her page had been hacked. And my guess is that whoever hacked the page invited the people from their personal profile. because she told me that the activity log didn't show any invites, but from what I'm gathering, the only activity that took place during that time frame was the invite. So that kind of narrows that one down. Being somebody that's been in IT for my entire life, literally since I could walk, I've been messing with computers. Our first computer in our house, I believe, was a Commodore 8080, maybe, and then an Apple IIe. And it just got, my love for it got better. And then I've worked in IT as an adult most of my life, with different organizations, companies, contracts, things of that nature. It sounds to me like it was, somebody that's got a problem with her, and my guess would be political games, honestly. I mean, we've seen it. I saw it with Melissa Atkinson when we were, in media last time, and we interviewed her, and it was, wow, the state level was a whole nother level of crazy. But Marion can be pretty crazy too in the politics, as you know, Cody.
Yeah, that's for sure. But like you said, that was the only invitation that went out, or any activity when whoever did hack her Facebook. So it does kind of make it pretty clear who was responsible for it. So that's unfortunate. And I'm not an IT guru like you, so I don't know how difficult it is to hack into a Facebook account. Is that typically difficult, Jason?
I mean, it depends. Uh, a lot of times we've seen people who have worked on campaigns, um, I guess political operatives, as everybody hears me rattling on about all the time, would be a good explanation. I don't know because I wasn't there, but it just seems awful funny to me that that seems to be the only activity on that page, and we've seen this time and time again. We've even had attacks on Mario Watch that have taken out our social media pages completely. Um, and our email accounts have been, messed with or attempted to be messed with. I have multi-factor authentication on now, so I get alerts and whatnot when somebody tries to sign in to anything that's Marion Watch branded. But back 6 years ago, 7 years ago or so, when we first got into media, up through the 2019, we constantly had problems. I haven't seen any issues. I did send you guys a screenshot of what I suspected to be a denial of service attack. It was coming from a computer that was way too small to overwhelm a 64 core processor with a terabyte of RAM in it. So that mission failed, but that's why we have three systems. We have two physical servers that are in Marion Watch organization hands, literally in their houses, and then we have the cloud system. So if they take out a couple of them, it'll bounce back and forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So who do you think back then was behind the attacks?
Well, I know it got real bad. There were two defining moments, and my mind's kind of foggy, but I'm sure that others like Mr. McCants and Mr. Landon and others may remember. Lynette, I don't know if she would remember or not. Tina may remember. She was following us pretty closely, but the first time we ever had a serious cyber attack was during when we were talking about back in Mr. Ron for sheriff, and we had I think it was on Facebook. It was our original page, got taken out. And then it just, when we broke the story of Mr. Matthews and his politicking while in office, which was handed to me in absolute secrecy, we had a series of just brutal attacks. And back then we were running our servers on a laptop for, we just have amazing donors now, but back then we were kind of like duct tape. And then the second or third round of crazy was the most intense. That was when we started dropping the articles about the city finances. um, we lost both mine and Zach's system during that attack. They were down for I don't know how many days, while I worked with people out of Columbus. to try to get them back online as fast as possible. Because we're talking about switches and routers and an entire network with firewalls, and it can be cumbersome. Um, so we have physical, and then we have the virtual environment now. So behind me, I won't show it because it's got like IP addresses and stuff on it, but I've got the stuff that makes the internet tick. Let's put it that way, the network. Um, and if that gets messed up, it can cause some problems. And now we have a hardware based system, and then we have a cloud based system. So if somebody comes and takes out the network that's behind me here, it'll bounce directly to the cloud system, which is a software based network configuration, if that makes sense.
So who is it, like at the party level, you think?
I don't know. I don't know. I just know that when we started talking about the finances and we released the first article, which is on Marion Watch, it's just in a weird format because I didn't feel like taking our notes from that. Um, we used to use a program to sign off on over the internet, and the two editors would have to sign off, and then Zach would sign off, and I would sign off, and then we would keep that, and I kept that, and I republished that basically. So it was the first article about the auditor's office, which would have been released in 2019 or so, maybe mid 19. And immediately we started getting hammered. Um, we had, and there's witnesses to this stuff. My mother, Dennis Potts, Lynette. There's a whole bunch. My brother's family, dance studio kids, the entire network saw it. We had notes left in our mailbox about basically uh, people who talk too much. Was the I'm not going to go all the way here because you know, but basically
Like
there
your
were
physical
threats.
mailbox, like your postal?
Right.
Oh,
And apparently it must have been done at night because the one time with the real serious threat was I had come home in the evening and checked the mailbox. It was after dark. And then the next morning I went out to check it. The mail hadn't arrived, but the note was there. Actually, I think it might have been my mother or Melissa who checked that and found it. But we've had emails. We've had the most prevalent attacks that we've had, or threats, I should say, are the ones that come from Facebook. And what they'll do is they'll play games. They'll create accounts and they'll send the threats. Then they'll delete the account immediately. So it just says Facebook user.
and they're like threatening. What
They
was substance typically?
the substance was basically keep your mouth shut or else. Um,
Really?
yeah, pretty much.
So like physical intimidation?
Yeah, we don't get physically intimidated at Marion Watch. I mean, we've been through some pretty crazy stuff. I've told you about a lot of it, and the public knows about a lot of it. So we just don't do the. If they try to intimidate us, it's just not going to work.
Man, it's craziness.
It is craziness, but we're starting to see some real cooperation with council. I mean, I know that I don't agree with all of them, and a couple of them have had some rather harsh things to say, but I respect direct people. One of the people that I respect the most, and I don't always agree with, is Jason. I like Jason. He's straightforward. He'll tell you what he thinks immediately. There's no real games involved. I haven't had a chance to talk directly in depth with Mr. Barr or Matt. I have talked to Mr. Prater. I've kind of talked to Twyla here and there. She's cautious. We are aware of some of her circumstances in the past, more distant past. So I understand why she's so cautious. We have talked to Thaddeus several times in passing, nothing real in depth. Um, and most of them really. Mr. Neff, I know that Tina has talked to Mr. Neff. Apparently, she has a rapport with him. I don't know Mr. Neff that well. He's going to be leaving office, and I have talked to Ayers pretty in depth. He's a very. I wish he wasn't leaving council. They're all just. I like them all in this lineup. Um, they all have a very diverse background, and we even have some IT backgrounds in the mix to understand the stuff that we've been throwing out about IT breaches. So I mean, they really understand it. Uh, so that's always helpful. Um, I haven't talked to Mary. I know these people are super busy. I'm busy too. We're not just doing media. I mean, you have a job. I have a job. Mr. Lannon has a job. Ed, everybody knows who Ed is. He's a coach and he does all kinds of volunteer work. And everybody involved has their own lives. I mean, hopefully we'll be blessed with being able to do something like this full time. But right now we're kind of trying to get everybody's schedules and get with them. That's why we're talking about doing virtuals to start with, and possibly some recorded stuff if we can, and broadcast those out. That's the plan anyway.
So is Prater gonna come on?
I'm gonna reach out to the rest of them that I have mentioned it to tonight, and see what their availability is. I know that Aaron Rollins was very excited to come. He says there's a lot to talk about. I think I sent you what he said. Um,
Yeah.
and he's cool. I like him. He understands, you know, a pretty good. I mean, he everything that's going on, he definitely understands. He has a solid grasp on it. Most of the counselors that I've talked to do. And our stats,
Rollins is sharp.
yeah. So our stats put the financial issues, and they have since last time we were running stats. I started running stats this time about a year and a half ago, before I got the big servers involved. And it hasn't changed. The finances are by far at the top. Right now, they're in with the charter initiative. That's bumped up to close to the same numbers. Directly underneath that, not too far behind, within 5%, are the courts and the prosecutor's office. So, of
Are
course, with
these are viewership of articles? Is that what you're saying?
we pull stats with our AI systems, which I don't have on, and even if I did, they're programmed a certain way, so I really don't want to show everybody how I have them programmed. Um, but basically, what it does is it goes out and finds content and then gives us a statistical report on what the main concerns may be, and that's on public posts only across multiple social media platforms, including comments.
Oh, okay.
So we can kind of gauge it by the traffic. Whenever we release a article about the prosecutor's office, we haven't released any specifically on the charter. That's coming. You guys are going to work on that, and then we'll publish it out, do some broadcasts and stuff like that. We mentioned the finances; the numbers also skyrocket. So that kind of confirms, our initial analysis.
Yeah. Well, there needs to be more awareness. It's very concerning with the charter issue
Right,
when, but for like the page that I'm administering and a few random uh, comments out there, articles, whatever, there really isn't much
right,
in the way of public awareness building. And that to me is very concerning and it's crazy. Like these people that are running for the commission need to be out there building awareness, talking about what their initial thoughts are, why they're in favor or opposed, and they're not doing it.
right. So yeah, I
Crazy.
mean, we can do a quick rundown here. Um, Fiscal year 99 reported in 2000. You can see my screen, correct?
Yep.
You'll see an operation deficit here of 2.38, general funds problems, um, uncollected taxes. Now, correlating into all of this, which I didn't really get into in this giant masterpiece of an article, is the council minutes. So the council minutes kind of give us clues, and then we got 2001, and it just keeps on getting worse. Um, all kinds of we have thefts. This is a big one here. Start getting here. These multi-million dollar deficits. Now, here you go. 2007. Anybody know what happened around 2007, 2008?
Oh, that was a crash.
That was the installation of the New World software.
Oh, that too. Yeah, you're right.
So here's a deficit going from, a couple million all the way up to 26,700,000. Now these are all in the audit reports. We're not pulling this stuff out of thin air. Now, Carr took office, and then the
That
software.
was the same year that she took office because,
Right. So
yeah,
2000.
Kramer was in until January of '08, and then Carr took over in '08.
So the findings in 2008, I believe there's 22 of them. And then the Silent Sabotage one article, it lists them all out in extreme detail, but I'm just kind of scrolling down through them. It's extensive and quite ridiculous.
Well, that's the thing. The city's finances went to shit in the '70s and the '80s because the entire industrial base, the actual factories that were located within the city limits and subject to city taxes, pretty much all went out of business.
Right,
And instead of cutting spending, what they did was raise income taxes.
right,
And they did that in what, '87 under Brown. He pretty much almost doubled it, took it from 1% to 1.75, and then they increased them again to the current 2%. So, that's pretty much been what how they've operated, um, is just putting more and more of a burden on the tax base inside the city, and that's counterproductive
right.
because you need to make businesses incentivized to locate in your city. And if you're not competitive from a tax standpoint, then you're probably not going to be successful in that. And I think, yeah, as far as creative accounting, um, that definitely probably did occur, it looks like. And it's just government policing government. Typically, you're not going to have that transparency because they're not incentivized to, you know, police themselves, unfortunately. And if you don't have people that are looking into things, asking questions, and that's definitely the case, um, this is what you end up with. I mean, do you think the Marion Star back in the '80s? I mean, yeah, their coverage was of local issues was much better, but if there was kind of a huge potential scandal, do you think that they would go to war in exposing it? No, they wouldn't.
Probably not, but they should. And I know I've talked to more than a handful of current and past officials who are quite concerned about some of the things that we brought to light. Like I said, I've probably said it 100 times in the chat. You guys probably think I'm insane. This is absolutely unacceptable. Um, and when you start looking closer at all of this, if you have an IT background, you notice no IT professionals. I probably have 100 of them on my personal profile and double that on the watch page from all over the world. Not one of them have come in there and said I said anything wrong because these are industry standard foundational practices worldwide.
Well, it's coming from the audits themselves.
Right. But the policy breaches and the practice breaches and
Oh, yeah, yeah,
password
yeah,
problems
yeah.
and not backing things up properly and not storing records for, you know, enough time, or, you know, sharing passwords or back doors or unauthorized server room access or turning the server room into an office. I know that Mayor Collins stopped that. I've been told that by everybody that I've asked, but it was said that a certain elected official had his office in the server room. Unacceptable.
Who was it?
It was Tommy, from what I understand.
Oh, Reese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just a stack. We have eyewitnesses dating back to, I don't even know when, and I can't really allude to it because it would probably help identify the person who currently wants to remain anonymous while they assist us in digging. But there's several of them, and they're eyewitnesses to password breaches, all kinds of grave IT issues. And when you start putting all the financial things together with all the IT issues and some of the political games that have gone on, you told me that you watched all the council meetings, you know, around the time that all the crazy was going on with the error in the auditor's office in, what was it, 2020 or so? Um,
Hmm.
and you were just appalled. So, I mean, it doesn't take a IT professional. It only takes a researcher with some brains to go through all this stuff, look at IT practices globally like PCI compliance and all kinds of other IT things that are globally recognized, and say something's wrong. I'll tell you, Cody, here's what I'll tell you on the record, and everybody can quote me on this. If Marion was a business and I took it over as the senior administrator, I would not shut up until a full forensic IT audit was done. I would go to the president of the company. I would do whatever I had to do to make sure it happened. Now, of course, the town that I grew up in and danced in and sang in and supported me and my family and that I love is way more important to me than any company or contract that I've ever had in IT. So I will be following up with this vigorously, as high as it takes.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between a company and the private sector where, they have to be concerned with their bottom line and, um, if they don't make money, then they go out of business. Whereas government has the luxury of basically being a parasite on the taxpayers, and they can get away with a lot more. I mean, there's very little in the way of internal policing, transparency, accountability, frameworks, and people think that, oh, well, the state audits them, the state would find it. No, no, that's not how it largely works. Yes,
So,
the state does audit them, and I think the only reason that Marion is in the situation that it's in right now is that they were getting by with the accounting methods and principles and the IT and all that stuff for years because it was basically just kind of like a machine that's already running.
right.
And
So,
then as soon as there's a glitch and something happens, they can't fix it. And it shows how the machine was actually running improperly from the beginning,
So,
right?
yeah, I mean, my assessment of the whole auditor, city auditor situation, and I think you'd probably agree, you have 15 years of financial experience, correct, in the financial field.
Correct.
So, I don't know, man. It's just really bad. And a lot of people like to look at 2020 or whatever and say, oh, that is where the financial problem started. No. Sorry, anybody that's saying that either doesn't know what they're talking about or hasn't done the research or is a political operative, period. I mean, all you got to do is look through the audits. We did stories on them last time. We've published several on them this time. I mean, we currently, and I don't have anything against Miranda other than she broke the law, um, purposely coding an expense to hide it from the IRS. How bad is that?
Yeah,
That's pretty
but
serious, right? I don't know. I'm not a finance guy. I'm an IT nerd and very tactical. But would the IRS have a problem with that, Cody?
I would think that they would, and whether or not she did it willfully or just out of incompetence and negligence. Um, I mean, she's made it very clear in her prior interviews that she doesn't know what she's doing. And that's the problem, like with the people, Marion has a competency crisis, and that's just a fact. So that goes into the charter discussion, and but since it broke down, and not if they were purging data after 90 days, I think from the water and sewer is how I understand it, right? That it purged after 90 days. Is that right? You cut out your volume. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I forgot to turn my mic back on. I've got a hardware mic right here in front of me. That's my understanding. Um, I'm focused on council minutes from 80 to 99 currently, and going through the audits that Tina went up and got from the archives. And they're a thing of beauty, let me tell you.
Yeah, and that's I think more questions need to be directed toward Robert Landon on that
Right.
exactly because he did say that during his interview, that 2 hour long interview he did on Scott Spears's podcast, and I would like to know more of the details because then when you go back and you listen to those interviews that were being done with then Mayor Scott Schertzer and Councilman Ayers Ratliff and also then Councilman Josh Daniels, um, it kind of lends some support to Landon's statements that they could have fixed it had they contracted with that third party within that 90-day period
Right.
because they wouldn't have been purged. That information wouldn't have been purged. Well, if that's the case, then that's why Veritas and these third party companies that the city has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars contracting with to try to reconcile the books, that's why they haven't been able to do it. If, and has anybody said like, oh, well, the data doesn't exist? Well, I don't think Veritas is, they're a client of the city. They're certainly not going to put that out there publicly. Um, and if the city itself doesn't come out and say, yeah, they're never going to be reconciled. And I don't know what you do. Do you get like a do over? If we're going to start fresh from here, I don't know how that works. And that would be another question, I think, for Robert Landon is to say, well, if that's the case, if that transaction data involving the sewer and the water bills is purged after 90 days, then is that even something that will ever be able to be reconciled? And that's the other thing that people don't like. I've heard it said by uh, Scott Spears, the podcaster, that well, the county auditor, you know, has never had a problem. So Joanne Casotis, and she didn't have any background in accounting. She was a teacher. She went in there. Well, the county doesn't have sewer or water that they're offering as a service. And I would think that as far as transaction numbers go, that has to be by far, hands down, the number one thing, responsibility of the Marion City Auditor. It's got to be the largest part of the portfolio of business, right?
I would think so. That brings up another point. The software was not installed properly. We can document that. That is a fact. The reconciliation module is a crucial module. You can probably tell them more about that than I can when the time comes. But basically, what I get is it keeps things in check. And without that, it can't keep things in check. And here we are, Reader's Digest version. Um, it's out of control, completely out of control. If you look at the spreadsheets that are being gone over, and we'll get to those when we do like council discussions and stuff, but you're talking about millions, tens of millions of dollars, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars over the past 35, 40 years that are deficit or they're hard to track. Like, and I'm no accountant, but if I was a forensic auditor, I can kind of put myself in the mindset of an IT audit. The target is only going to be attained if you are looking at the scope of time correctly. Does that sound like a fair assessment to you, Cody? So if
Well, I think so. I mean,
they're stopping at the most shiny explosion, in a lot of people's opinions, probably 80% of the 400 people that I've talked to over the past year and a half, it's the most shiny thing. So let's stick to that and make that the narrative.
yeah,
When in
yeah,
fact, we can document with auditor estate audits that the financial problems in Marion have been real bad. I mean, we've gone back to what, 83 now? We're getting ready to start pushing out articles on the council and the audits from 83 to 99, which were missing in our first silent sabotage article because we didn't go back that far. But what made us decide to go back that far was the amount of issues that we were seeing in council minutes, things that were mentioned by people like Mayor Kellogg and other mayors, about getting in heaps of trouble with the auditor estate. These are in the council minutes, like the official ones that we downloaded to our servers from the city of Marion. So it happened. So anybody that's in the comments yammering on about this is false or fake news, download them. I mean, they'll be in the article. They always are. That is our rule. There is a source for every claim. Period.
yeah. Well, like I said, you can't go through a complete gutting of your work, your industrial base, and the basis of your economy in a span of 10 years and not see substantial reductions in government and expect there not to be something going on. I mean, just logically, you have Marion Power Shovel, I think at the peak of its employment was like 4,200 workers. A good majority of those would have resided in the city of Marion. I think when they closed down, I believe they were around 2,000 employees, something like that. I have the figure on the article that I did. Same thing with Tecumseh. Tecumseh was about, when they closed down, Tecumseh was, I think, employing more people than what Whirlpool does today. And you also had Huber. Huber was, I think, when they shut down, about 400 or 450 employees. Well, if Huber's 400 or 450 employees were in the city of Marion today, it'd be uh, what, one of the largest, probably would be the largest employer inside the city limits because Whirlpool's outside of the city limits. So these were a series of, and there were others that went out during that time. how did the city make up for that? You know?
Right. I mean, even a state audit, as I understand it from talking to financial professionals, including yourself, are just a quick check, as you understand it, or as I understand it. I mean, it's in depth, it's highly technical, of course, but it's not like a deep dive into everything. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're not going over receipts and uh, looking over receipts and disbursement ledgers and things like that, and with a fine tooth comb. You know, they'll look into, they'll do kind of a basic check. And again, this is something that Landon's gone through that through a public sector audit. So he can comment more on that. But from my understanding, they're just looking kind of a big overview on what is prepared by the auditor's department. And if it looks like it's in line, if it's passes the smell test, then that is satisfactory. And they'll put the disclaimer, if you read the audit reports, they'll put the disclaimer in there that they cannot verify the information because they didn't look into everything with a fine tooth comb, to paraphrase. So I think it'd be kind of akin to if you were self employed and you filed a Schedule C and you put your figures on your Schedule C as far as your deductions and everything, it'd be like the IRS auditing you and saying, oh, yeah, that sounds reasonable for what kind of business you're running. And they're not reviewing, requesting your receipts or any supporting documentation. They're going off of a review just of what you filed on your 1040 and your schedules.
Right. So, I mean, again, that just furthers our resolve in trying to get somebody to look really close at the IT systems and communication systems. We've been told for we've been doing this since 2009, increasingly until I got home in 14, and we've always heard rumors about IT issues, records disappearing, utility bill problems, issues, but they gained credibility when we started getting into like the marches against heroin and meeting political figures, that were sharing more in-depth knowledge so we could target a little bit better. And then the motto of follow the money, um, got real in depth around 2017, and we had targeted it to somebody either within City Hall or within one of the financial agencies. And that's something that Mr. Landon can verify, and McCants can verify, my entire family can verify, Dennis Potts can verify, Lynette can verify. We started asking a lot of questions in 17, and I mean maybe even a little bit before that as the marches were going on, and we were called all kinds of really horrible things, of which none of us are. And I'm not even going to get into that. Some of them are still in the comments. I was back looking at some of the political insanity, from a long time ago. It's interesting what happens when you start asking the right questions, and that's when you know you're on the right track. When you start getting attacked and berated and called names and called racist and called insane and religious fanatics and the whole 9 yards. They attacked children in the family. Um, it was bad. Like in the comments and private posts, they shared things to some of the more gossipy news pages in Marion of minor children in these pictures. And they attacked a childhood friend of mine, Mr. Sad, who was running for office at the same time Landon was. And somebody leaked New World software screenshots of a personal utility bill of his. Apparently, it was behind. I'd have to look at it. It's on Marion Watch. But so what I say to that is, I have screenshots of New World. I have screenshots of the user that I've been discussing with the inappropriate access. And since somebody in the city decided they were already going to release screenshots of New World, I guess it's okay. And that's what we'll be doing.
Yeah. Well, it needs, it needs to come out. It needs to change. I think that there's also questions, legitimate, as far as Marion historically was not a dynastic city as far as the tenure that politicians would hold offices. And that all changed after the economic collapse. Spent the hundreds of thousands of dollars 70s contracting with to try to reconcile, and that's when you got about when they closed down. Tecumseh was, I think, employing more people than what Whirlpool does today. Years as mayor, and that's when you got you also had auditor. Huber was, from I think when they shut down about 400 or 450 to 2008. Well, if Huber's 400 or 450 employees were in the city of Marion today, it'd be Mark Russell for 30 years. What one of the largest? This is all abnormal. Probably would be the largest employer inside the city council because Whirlpool's outside of the city. Mike Thomas, and so these were Ralph Cumpston for over 20 years. That's not typical to Marion. That's a recent development. Well, when you have entrenched politicians like that, I think that it does make the environment more conducive to maybe things like creative accounting or a lack of accountability because they're entrenched. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that that's absolutely what happened, but I think it supports that narrative.
That's right. And I don't want to quote him, but Aaron sent something. I can't get to it right now, but he basically said that he was shocked. Most of the counselors that we've shared some of the preliminary findings with were just floored with the time frame of the issues. You know what I mean? In the financial and IT, we can track IT issues all the way back to 1983. There's mentions of no passwords, mentions all the way through the 80s into the 90s into the 2000s about insecure IT systems of various forms. Grave. I would fire people if I found out that they were running their IT systems like that immediately. And in the public sector, I know I've personally seen employees that have been civilly sued because of such things allowed to go on. And let me explain. The issues starting in the 80s and never remedied created an environment where this was accepted. So, yeah, anybody that's looking to nefariously access anything is going to know about these, of course, because people like that are predatory. So, just hypothetically, who knows what happened? Um, with the IT systems out of whack, not up to global industry standards, it's hard to tell what happened. And no, there has never been a forensic IT audit in the city of Marion. This forensic audit that everybody keeps throwing back at me, this is a financial thing. These are two totally different things. I have no doubt that
Right.
Veritas is highly competent. They're one of the best accounting firms on the planet. But if they're not looking at the right date frames, the right time frames, they're never going to find anything. Um, so our proposal is to get a third party, non-city affiliated IT firm, forensic IT firm, to come in and audit all of the financial systems, all of the new world systems, including breaking it down to code sometimes. They do that. Because when problems like this are allowed to fester over generations like this, it's hard to tell what happened. We know that Brenda was caught with stealing money. I don't remember how much it was, but it was tens of thousands of dollars. It's mentioned in the audit reports. She did so by manipulating the software pretty much, um, and not entering things or whatnot. But I'm also aware of other things that went on in the city utilities or billing departments of various sorts that are highly questionable. Accounts being changed. These are firsthand eyewitness accounts. These are not hearsay. These are people that have told me. If they're subpoenaed into court, they will testify. So, this is not a made up story. If it's allowed to fester, if I wanted to hack into a system or take complete control of a system, one of the ways that I would do it would be to install inferior tools. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would want to get control of the narrative and get the correct systems in place that I can easily circumvent or not configure them properly. And from talking to council and looking at faces when I made my address before council, I can tell that what I was saying was being taken and it was right. There were permissions that were turned off on the back end. When they started turning them on, it caused a rat's nest of crazy, and they're trying to dig themselves out of that too. It's a big mess. I actually feel sorry for Twyla and the finance committee and Bill. Wow. But I mean, qualifications for, a financial, I mean, shit show. Sorry, but it's a financial shit show. Um, is far above probably anybody that they're going to find that would be willing to run for an office like that at that pay grade. And I've talked to accountants in California. I've talked to accountants in Texas. I've talked to accountants in various areas of the Carolinas and Florida who have all told me that they wouldn't take that job for $250,000 a year until a full forensic audit's done of both the IT systems and the financial systems because they're so messed up that anybody could be a fall guy. I mean, anybody that's in that office, honestly. You know how finances work. I know how IT works. So I know that if I got into that office, and I'm no idiot, I'm not a financial guy, but I could probably figure out the process from my IT knowledge to a certain extent, hire people in that, were financially capable as a leadership, which was actually Mr. Landon's plan. He had a pretty solid leadership background, and he was trying to get people in there that were solid. But if you have political operatives working against you to try to cover something up, you're not going to get anywhere. So Mr. Landon
Right.
was asked when he was on council. We became friends, I believe, right before he was elected to council. And I don't know about friends. We were kind of, I guess, acquaintances. We were talking. And we went through the marches. When he decided to run for auditor, we became very good friends. Um, but he had told me when he was running for auditor that he had never firsthand witnessed any IT breaches, but he had heard about them. And I've heard that echoed across council now, council then, um, and 10, 12, 15 years before that. Like I said, we've been at this since 2009. These are echoes that I'm constantly talking about, sounding like a crazy person. When I talk about echoes, that's what I'm talking about. These are things that we've been tracking for a very long time that range from anywhere from finances to the police to the court systems to records and the city utilities department and the sanitation department. Those two departments keep on coming up in the council meetings for financial issues and other kinds of insanity. And it's just highly suspicious. So if I wanted to take control of a system, I would I would get the narrative and get the backing, and I would install the tools that would allow me to do that. Now we know that New World Software has a very long history of litigations, lawsuits, for all kinds of stuff, false arrests. Uh, and as I understand it from current counsel, this particular piece of software was highly contested, and they went ahead and implemented it anyway, and didn't
Was
install it
that
correctly.
brought up at the time when you look at the minutes from like '07, '08? Did anybody bring up any of the criticisms of that software, or was it just passed without much in the way of discussion?
I haven't gotten all the way through the council minutes yet. I am struggling with 83 to 89 right now. I'd have to go back over the council minutes. The first article wasn't based on council minutes. I might correlate that again with the council minutes, but I'm sure from the people that have told me these are credible people, they're elected officials. They're not going to tell me something that's not true. They know I'll publish. They know I won't hesitate. We don't hesitate. So, they're telling me that it was highly contested. Um, I've had, the elders of the community are what Marion Watch was built on and started with. Um, the parents of the studio kids I'm always talking about, grandparents, Joanne, my mother, um, they've told me the same thing, that they can recall that this was highly contested and um, debated. So I have no doubt that when I get to the 2008 council minutes, there'll be some mentions in there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that would support uh, something nefarious or at least negligent um, going on for a good many years, and um, I don't know how people. Well, just like with Landon, like they jumped on him right away, like hardcore, with that sample ballot, which was, for all intents and purposes, you know, complete bullshit. Nobody is going to view a something that is clearly a campaign brochure and be confused or manipulated in any way to think that that is something official coming from the Secretary of State or the Board of Elections. So why were they so hell bent on trying to scuttle his entry into the auditor's department?
I'm
You
not
know?
sure. I know that we published I'd have to look at the date, but we published the original auditor article um, just before the election and maybe months before. I can't remember, but it was pretty brutal. And we went through every finding and citation issued by the auditor against Carr. Um, and these, I believe it was 2008 or 2010. There were 22, 22. This is just after the software installation, and the auditor estate knew that the reconciliation module was not properly installed and that this software was not installed properly or functioning properly. I don't know what their scope is in enforcing any kind of whatever to fix that problem, but I do know that the city should have, um, and the software vendor can be held liable for, you know, not taking care of their stuff. I know they were contacted. I know that there were password wars. I know that the software vendor documented these things. I know that it was brought up many times, and it was discarded as conspiracy theory. I'm aware of certain court cases that were sealed. I'm not going to go too far into that, but we will be talking about that. dealing with financial crazy. And there certainly are a whole lot of other circumstantial evidence situations regarding certain financial institutions, of which may or may not be part of this sealed case. I do know that one of the people in the sealed case drafted a letter in support of Mr. Landon after the debacle in the auditor's office, or it might have been before. I can't remember. Like I said, these are preliminary findings. I believe that the one that I'm talking about may have been about the ballot thing or another political game. I'm not sure. But we'll be publishing on that. I don't want to go too far into it until I've read back over all these documents because it's been a really long time. And I think I might be able to get a hold of these court records because people did have these court records before they were sealed.
Oh, yeah.
And if
Yeah,
I
that'd
can
be
get
good.
my hands on those, oh yeah, oh yeah, we'll be releasing them. Because if there was an attack, we don't do it. We will defend anybody who is attacked politically. I don't care who they are. I don't even care if I like them. Our network is pretty huge, and I don't agree with everybody, and everybody doesn't agree with me. But what we do is we cover each other. And that's the circumstance that Mr. Landon learned the most about Marion Watch was when he went through the ballot thing. I pulled him off the. He was one of the first people to come into a group chat, and the core team, as I call them. He knew their identities. McCants, I believe, was one of the very first ones. He was pulled in and trusted. I ejected Robert, and I told him, "I'll bring you back in, but we're going to investigate you. Do you have anything to tell me? Because if I find it, we will release it." And he said, "No, go ahead and do what you got to do." And I've done this 2 or 3 times with Landon and other people, and I've found nothing. Everything he said to me has been true, and I can't say that about others who have left office since, um, that we've had all kinds of problems with. But when we went through the political scene from 15 to 2020, when my better half's, my son's mom, um, got real sick, she had many surgeries, was in the hospital for pretty much 3 years. We almost lost her many times. Uh, it was just, it was all, we saw so much. And we had our core team at that time was about 50 to 75 people. And what we did was we had all these people spread out in different organizations and campaigns or close to them. So when we started having problems like undocumented stops, traffic stops, when we saw crazy that was happening, we couldn't report it at that time while we were in the political scene because we had boots on the ground, so to speak. And it is our experience that this can get dangerous.
Yeah.
So we don't know, we didn't know what they would do, or, we don't want to put our safety's number one, always has been, with Marion Watch. But Landon saw when they started attacking him, and it didn't take us long to go through all this crazy and talk to our sources on the inside, um, to figure out that this was just a political game. I mean, Carr was the one who filed the police report. So, I
Right.
mean, these political games have been going on in Marion. My mom was born in the mid 40s, midish 40s, and she said that the political games in Marion have been going on as long as she can remember,
Oh, yeah.
and they've just gotten more brutal. So, yeah, man, if I see somebody attack Telly unwarranted, if I see somebody attack, I mean, anybody in the network, Naomi, if I see somebody attack, and we will see it because we have systems that are constantly watching and people. If I see anybody on the core team get attacked, if I see a member of the public getting attacked, or unjustly prosecuted, we will absolutely publish on it and we will cover them, as long as they're not in the wrong, and they're documented. Document for every claim. That's our rule.
That's why I'm excited about this, and I think that the people of Marion should be very excited because there's been a void for the most part with local news and having a forum where people can, it's one thing to read an article on social media. It's quite another to be able to watch a conversation, to listen to a conversation, and to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, as they say. So, and I think that with our ability to incorporate that network of people on the inside, um, people that are active in the community, directly involved in these issues, these matters, and then to be able to pull up the source. So again, play a clip. If there's a document that we're talking about, pull it up on the screen. Nobody is doing that. And I think that it needs to be done if Marion is ever going to turn a corner on some of these challenges that have been pervasive for the better part of 50 years. So I'm really excited. I think a lot of good can come out of this, and I think that we can really do some good things, Jason.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. And just for clarification before we wrap it up, and you can attest to this, before I pull the trigger on anything, Cody's in the group chat, the core team chat. He is a member of the core team. We just haven't announced him on the watch page because we've been crazy busy. So before I do anything too crazy like that speech, I always consult with the inner core team as well as the core team that is no longer active, including my family, my mother, certain legal professionals, as well as Dennis Potts, who was a career sheriff detective. And when Dennis Potts saw the evidence and heard the phone calls and other recorded medium and things like that, consensual, of course, he said you've got multiple eyewitnesses. In most crimes, it only takes one, maybe two, to make an arrest. So he was like, go ahead and do it. He was like, these people got to learn. So that's coming from a cop.
Yeah,
So we're not just loose cannoning anything here, and you know that. We have a team of highly qualified people involved in this, including former law enforcement, military, financial professionals. You're a historian and a financial professional, and you also have, as I understand it, a law degree.
I do.
Yeah. So, I mean, how much more qualified do people want us to be? I've got literally a lifetime of experience in IT systems. I hate coding, but I can do it, obviously. Um, but I'm more of a sysadmin. I recruit talent and delegate, take care of big systems. And you've seen the systems that I've designed. Um, and they're functional, they're highly secure, and I abide by what I'm talking about in these articles, man. Like, you've seen that I keep multiple copies of backups. You've seen that nobody has admin access. Not even my son, who's learning how to run the system. He has a special level of access. I have to basically permit any actions that he does as an administrator before it'll go. So yeah, I abide by this. This is real world stuff that I've done in my life. So the qualifications in the Marion Watch organization have always been top notch. Coach Tracy Cooperrider was talking to us for years before he just saw enough and said, I've seen enough. Literally, that's what Marion's Watch is made of, is citizens that say, I've seen enough, I've had enough, it's not happening. What can I do? And here we are. So yeah, I'm very excited. All of our IT systems are ready to go. They're all redundant and they're mobile. We can shoot on the scene live videos. We can record. We can broadcast to anything, including open air antennas. I don't have anything like that, but we are in discussions to try to reach out to some of these faith-based organizations that do over-the-air broadcasting. And if I can get us on those, we'll be doing it because I've had enough of the games and I've had enough of the political operations and operatives. I've had enough of disappearing records and sealed records to conceal whatever they're trying to conceal. I've had enough of the threats against the public and intimidation and protection orders against citizens for exercising their rights and trying to hold the government accountable. They've got multiple lawsuits for a very large variety of crazy. So yeah, if I see it, we're going to report it, Cody.
Yeah, and I think people need to come into anything with an open mind. And I think that's crucial that, we have people on here in the community that are committed to spreading awareness and trying to expose the truth. It doesn't mean, well, we're not sitting here and saying for certain 100% fact, like this is the way it is on most issues. Some things are black and white, but a lot of things are gray. And we, I know at least from my part, like I'm committed to trying to figure things out and putting out the information that I have so that people can make their own decisions, an informed decision. At least it is something. It's discussion. It is, starting a flame that might, yield positive change. But people have to come into it with like an open mind. I mean, just like this issue with the city finances, you can't say, oh, it only happened after 2020. That's it. Everything else was perfect. You can't do that. You have to have an open mind and say, well, what do the audits going all the way back to the 80s say? What do the newspaper articles and what's the history of what was going on? Um, you have to be willing to think. And some people aren't. Some people, for political reasons or personal grudges or what have you, they uh, have said in their mind that this is all I'm going to look at. This is the only thing that I will listen to, and you can't be that way. So that's what I see this discussion, this show, this format, um, as something where we can go and we can talk and we can try to figure things out. And hopefully, we'll come away after every show being more informed and being more committed to doing what is right for the community.
That's right. That's exactly the mindset too. I really don't. It wasn't my idea to come into media. This was my team's idea. But just I love it. I grew up, performing and stuff, so I can do it. I'm very personable. I'm kind of quiet. I'm a thinker. So just to give you a rundown, this is a 1983 document that we started putting together, that I have sent out to a lot of people, which is one of our practices. We send it out to the public. We send out things like this that are just kind of short things, and sometimes we send out the full articles before we publish a couple of days before. But this is one of the information technology issues dating back to 1983. And here again, we see another echo. Sewer and Sanitation Department. All employees had access to the computer terminal and could post adjustments and payments to customer accounts. The absence of access controls created a significant opportunity for unauthorized adjustments and manipulation of revenues. So we have that in 1983 or so. Um, I mean, it's pretty compelling evidence to me, anyway.
Yeah. Too bad we couldn't interview Bob Kramer before he died.
I know, right? I would love to sit down with any of the quote unquote old school guys, Mr. Kellogg, or a designated representative of his. Anybody that served alongside of or in council that is still alive. I don't even want to put them on record. I just want to sit down with them and probably you and go over these council minutes and ask a couple of questions. But I mean, here's a rundown of the some of the stuff that we found in the 1983 or so era, um, and it's just atrocious, and it just keeps on going. And there are a couple of years where they don't mention IT issues, but anybody in IT knows that unless there's a serious red flag, they're really not going to dig into the IT issues unless they absolutely have to. And in a situation like Marion's in and has been in, obviously, for almost as long as I've been alive, maybe even longer. I haven't got back into the early mid 70s yet. This is a serious problem. And anybody who's paid taxes in Marion or pays taxes in Marion, um, they should be very interested in this. This is serious stuff, like unsecured deposits, unbonded officials, all the way back to 83. Now, these are preliminary findings, but we're going through official auditor of state reports. And like I said, there's a document for every claim, and here's the pages from that audit and the master directory that has, I don't even know how many files in it anymore. That you can go in and look at. It tells you what page it's on. I mean, I don't know
Yeah, that's great.
what more they want as far as credibility goes than the auditor of state audits, in black and white, actually literally in black background with white writing, but that's because they're being scanned off of microfilm, um, which Tina just did an amazing job. I think we have a couple of more to go, and then we're probably going to have one of the gentlemen start going back into the 70s. And there's reasons for that. Anybody that's been alive that long can probably put two and two together as why we don't want anybody but the former law enforcement or men, people that can handle themselves very well looking into these earlier audits and financial records. There's been articles published about these concerns over the years, and I'm not really going to even mention them. Um, but yeah, this is just a rundown of the 83, and it's not even done yet. I still have to put in the council minute um, thing and then turn it into an article. But yeah, man, this has been going on for a real long time, and we I know you're excited. I know everybody in the team's excited about the broadcasting. I think we can bring a lot of truth to light that's been suppressed, or just some people just might not know how to report it or find it. I'm not real sure why the local media, the actual quote unquote official media in Marion and Columbus, by the way, Columbus media has some pretty serious IT people, and how this did not catch their attention, I don't know. Like, as soon as I started looking bit beyond what we reported on last time, which would have been about the 2010 era that we started in last time, I believe, it was blatantly obvious. And with the eyewitness accounts of the breaches in the technology, uh, I'm just floored that nobody has insisted that such investigations be conducted before. I don't even know. I have people who have worked for some of the largest telecommunications on the face of the earth who are asking the same question. They're like, how did this? I've shared, I think, with you and the core team, some of my former coworkers that have IT backgrounds and financial backgrounds and management backgrounds at a very high level. And they're saying, how and why did this go on for so long? I can't explain it, Cody. Like, I don't understand. What I do understand is that IT would have had to have known.
Well, like I said, I think when you're dealing with who is policing the police, or who's governing the government, you're gonna have that, I think. And I'm sure it's not just Marion. That's just how it is, unfortunately, in this country. And I think the only times that you see accountability is if something breaks and it's forced out into the open. And then in those situations, most of the time, they have a fall guy. And then it's all about that person. It was their fault. They were the ones, and they try to limit the scope. So not only do they have a fall person, but let's was just during their tenure when this corruption or these issues have been systemic for years.
Right, and at the federal level, I mean, we've seen they're far more powerful than anything I could ever afford by far, but they're using similar systems as to what we're using, self-housed AI systems that crawl things, and then they vet them. Um, and the national team that I'm always rambling on, uh, they're highly qualified people too. And it is our belief, and we're starting to put together I guess, a document to document it. This is a nationwide problem, and usually when something as high as the federal government is caught in blatant financial abuses and crimes, it trickles down. So I think that if we really put a team together and of people that know what they're doing, even if just to download thousands and thousands of documents, um, we're going to find some patterns. And I already have. I was sent some articles by, I'm not going to name the person because it would be bad, but he sent me some articles about some financial issues in the more deep Midwest, South, maybe a little bit further south, in the middle of the country that are having and have had some serious financial problems that are attributed to things like we're seeing here. And it's just not good. And they got to fix it, man. Like, and one of my biggest problems with all the crazy, especially around the 2008 mark that I showed earlier in the original Silent Sabotage article, uh, is that when Marion was 26 or 27 million dollars in deficit, that was during the height of the overdose crisis. And
Yeah.
Marion was very late to respond to that. And originally, I had assumed that it was because perhaps they didn't want to, or some. I think there might have been some of that going on. Basically, the theory was let the junkies die for a long time, um, which I'll never agree with. That's abhorrent. Uh, sorry, I gotta. Sorry, I got interrupted. What was I talking about, Cody? Sorry.
Oh, the drug epidemic
Mm.
in those years.
So imagine a city, uh, 20. I'll call it 28 million. It's 27.9 or something in debt around the time of the addiction crisis. They couldn't respond because of the financial mess.
Yeah.
So they literally wouldn't have been able to respond because they were so far in the hole. Um, they couldn't, and we lost so many people.
And that was bonded debt.
I'd have to look at it closer. I can bring it up. Let me go find it. It's right here. I think I might have passed it. There it is. So this would have been around fiscal year 2007. It would have been reported in 2009. So I don't know what that means, but if you get down here, uncollected just 8 years prior fiscal year. So these are the uncollected, I'm assuming taxes and receivables. And then you come down here. City debt levels continued their discernible upward trajectory towards this period, reflecting either increased borrowing activity by the city or ongoing accumulation of long-term liabilities. Amount $26,700,000.
Okay, so yeah, that's bonded bonded debt and like pensions and stuff like that, long term liabilities. Well, that's that was the promise of Mayor Doc Brown, was that pay as you go.
Right.
So not going into debt to fund. So in the mid 80s when he ran for mayor, he ran under that slogan, pay as you go, and uh, made promises that Marion needed to uh, get its financial house in order, cut spending. He was talking about decreasing entire departments, and then he does a 180 pretty much within 6 months of getting into office. And instead of pay as you go, it was continue the same old of spending now at and paying interest in the long term, and just kicking the can down the road and putting the burden on future residents of Marion. Um, and then he actually expanded the number of city employees, didn't cut any departments or any reduction in spending. And how he got away with it is he started campaigning on uh, increasing the income tax. So, and he was successful. The people in Marion voted it in. So they increased it from 1% rate to 1.75%. And that enabled them in the short term to go ahead and continue to fund government at current levels. But that's what they need to do. You have to live within your means, and that sometimes requires some belt tightening. But government never wants to tighten their belt. They constantly want to increase their waistline and go ahead and consume more, spend more, tax more. That's their solution. And um, it's unfortunate, but that's the trajectory that the city's been on. All the while, businesses, as far as manufacturing industry, what Marion historically was built on, was gutted during those years. And instead of looking at what is the solution, how can we be more attractive to business, to industry, to commerce? How can we attract people here? They don't do that because they don't want to tighten the belt on the size of government. So to me, if I had a business, let's say a factory, Findlay, Ohio. Findlay is roughly the same population. I think Findlay is about 37,000 people. Marion's about 35,
Yeah, that's
let's
what I
say.
use to compare a lot too.
Yeah. Well, Findlay has a 1% income tax rate. Marion has 2. Why would I come and relocate my factory to Marion if I can go to Findlay? You know,
Right.
and that's why you need to look at those core fundamental things that make business, because that's the other fallacy that people have, especially amongst non-business owners, is they think, oh, that factory's so wealthy, all those, uh, that owner or those shareholders or whatever, they're a bunch of greedy SOBs. A lot of your businesses run on small margins. That's what people need to realize. So the difference of having 1% income tax difference, that can make all the difference in the world, whether or not you're able to stay afloat. And when you look at Marion, historically. That's what Huber, that's what Tecumseh, Marion Power Shovel, when they went to these unions to renegotiate their contracts, they said, hey, times are tough, you know, and they were now paying, Marion implemented the income tax and, well, they passed it in 59 at what, I think it was 0.6%. And they said it was going to be temporary for like 2 years. Well, and anytime the government tells you a tax is going to be temporary, then you need to run the other direction because it was not temporary, and then they just gradually increased it. But they had that. They had those new income taxes at the city level to deal with, and then the state of Ohio passes the income tax. They create a state of Ohio income tax in 1972. So before that, you didn't pay Ohio state income tax. So that was a lot. Yeah, it was the globalization of trade and the Carter administration and a lot of other federal policies that impacted the competitiveness of American industry. But the state of Ohio and the city of Marion didn't help matters. So, you know, then they didn't get any concessions when they tried to renegotiate to say, hey, we want to stay in Marion. We don't want to relocate to Alabama or somewhere with a lower tax burden, um, in less of a union influence and stuff. Or some of them relocated overseas. They didn't get any type of support or any type of concessions or anything. So, with their margins being what they were, they shut down the factory. You know, but that's what people need to look at. You got to scale back government spending. You have to make Marion competitive and attractive for businesses to invest here. Then your growth might be able to be sustained. Because right now, I love, there's a lot of positive stuff going on. My hat's off to it. But how much of it is grant funded? Where the state of Ohio is redistributing those state income tax funds and awarding them in the form of grants to refurbish downtown Marion. It's not, for the most part, a result of private capital investment. It's not some millionaire coming in and saying, I'm going to renovate Hotel Harding with my money, 100% my money. I'm going to renovate this because I can make a profit of X percent. That's not the way it is.
Yeah, so it's not sustainable. It's not generated uh, like a
It's
business
not
would
free
generate.
market.
Right.
It's not, yeah, it's not generated by the free market. It's not private capital saying that, yes, it's worth investing, just like the grocery that they put on the corner across from the courthouse, the old tobacco and
Right.
uh, newsstand and stuff. How much money was invested in that? Was it private capital? Was it somebody saying, you know what this corner needs is a grocery store or a little fresh food market? It's a stunning building. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing. They did a wonderful job. I'm glad they did it. It's really cool. I went through it during the popcorn festival when I was down there, but it doesn't detract from my point that that was not private capital investment coming in. Probably all or a majority of the funds needed to do a project like that were from state issued grants. So if I'm a developer and that's my project, if I'm getting half or three quarter or 80-90% of the funds in order to put millions of dollars or however much it costs to renovate that old derelict property, if I'm getting all that money in the form of grants, I don't really give a shit whether or not it's going to be profitable, because a lot of times in those grants and stuff, like, you're carving out a chunk of that for you to do the work. You know what I mean? So um, I'm happy that there's been that movement. My question is, how much of it is the result of the free market? How much of it is sustainable? And that's what we need. We need sustainable growth and economic development. And it has to be largely based on free market capital. That is the way that Marion is going to succeed. Because if you look historically, there's been many examples in this country in the modern era. So I'm talking when you had the era of big government, state income taxes, these redistributive grant programs and things, where money will go to revitalization of a section of a city or something like that, and it'll work. They'll fix it up. They'll make it look nice, and it might be trendy, and there might, be some amount of commerce and whatnot for a period of time. But then a lot of times those neighborhoods then go back. They have another decline. And Cleveland, this pops into my head. They did all that revitalization there in what is that, the warehouse district, or it was in conjunction with when they built the stadiums and stuff. And they've a lot of those portions are struggling because there again, it wasn't free market capital that was coming in. Now that example, yeah, there was a lot more free market capital um, than what has probably occurred in downtown Marion. But you know, I just that's my thing, is just sustainable growth and investment from private investors. And the way to do that is to make Marion more attractive to do business, which means that you're going to have to be competitive. You're going to have to look at being creative on government funding, maybe tightening your belt, being the most efficient that you possibly can. That way you can reduce something like your income tax.
I mean, that makes sense to me. And there's a lot of instances through the years where they're not collecting that. I mean, we saw an example kind of similar with the utility thing here recently. That was crazy. I'm still looking at that very closely with some, people, including yourself, and current officials, which I won't name. But that's highly weird. Like all that, what, 5.2 or whatever it was million. I don't remember exactly what the figure is currently, but I mean, it's just the finances, and Marion has stayed, actually has declined in population over the years, probably because of the things that you're discussing and the decline financially and of industry and business and things of that nature.
Yeah, and we don't have a sustainable birth rate either. If you look at rural parts of Ohio, we're not at replacement levels. Replacement level, and as far as birth rate goes, like 2.1 children per woman in a lifetime. Um, most of rural Ohio is like 1.1 to 1.3. So we're not having children, and that puts additional strain on the source of revenue for government. If you don't have those working class people or working age people contributing to your tax base. So, and then you have these people that are entrenched in government, whether it be at the your local government or even the school system, and they don't want to cut. They don't want to shrink the size or the scope or the scale of government, but yet they don't have the same number of people. They have a declining population, they have an aging population. So what do? They go and they say, "Oh, we need to raise taxes. We need to increase, at the schools." This whole notion of school districts having an income tax, that's new. You had property taxes as the exclusive funder of your public school system. And then here over the last 10 years, all these districts are tacking on an additional income tax. Well, they're not getting the money from the state or the feds because their enrollments have declined so much. If you look, the enrollment, I don't care, Harding, River Valley, you name Pleasant, compare it from 2010, compare it from 2000, across the board, lower, substantially lower. Some of these districts, like you look in Crawford County and stuff, Buckeye Central is way down compared like to 20 years ago. Um, they're all that way. So they were getting, I think, about $11,000 a pop per kid from state and federal funds. And if you don't have that kid, then you don't get that $11,000. So then what's the solution? Well, if it was a private business operating under free market principles, you'd say, hey, my sales have declined. So I'm going to have to cut my workforce or cut my spending to correspond with what my current receipts are, my current sales are. They don't do that. They give you an emotional argument as to, well, if you don't pass this income tax or this property tax increase, then we're going to have to cut, band or something that everybody loves. Well, the city's the same way, you know. They're not going in there and ever saying, hey, we've got a declining population, we've got declining receipts or what have you, or financial distress. We need to scale back the size and scope of government. Nope, never hear that. Last time you probably heard that was Doc Brown, and he did a 180 and completely changed his tune within 6 months of being elected mayor. And you can ask yourselves, why would somebody campaign on that? And that's like a big deal to them and pay as you go and all this stuff. And then you do like a 180 on it? Like, what was going on back then? Well, you can speculate. You can look at who the power players were in Marion at the time and what atmosphere was he up against. And then you can say, well, did somebody put pressure on him to completely change his tune? Maybe. He's dead. We'll never know, I suppose. But, you know, that's why you have to widen your perspective. And that's what you're doing. And that's great. You have to consider all things, research, learn as much as you can about the history of the city and its finances, its politics. And when you do that, you'll have a better understanding of where we are today because most people, unfortunately, only have a historical perspective of what they themselves have experienced. And if you're under the age of 60, you've only known personally, you've only known Marion in decline. So your perspective, your historical context, your historical perspective is that decline is the status quo. It's normal. I drove by this factory and it's all boarded up and it's been boarded up and vacant my whole life. So that's what is accepted. That's the status quo.
Right, and
However,
it's all
if you
sad.
were alive 80 years ago, you'd say, "Oh yeah, that factory used to employ 1,500 people, and it was booming." So you're it's different.
Yeah, it's very interesting going back through the history, and we'll get into that. I'm gonna hop off and feed the child and all that good stuff. But this is just a test. It's going good. We haven't had any drops. I've had a couple of errors where I've switched the wrong screen, but we'll get there. I appreciate you joining me.
All right, buddy. It sounds good.
All right, you take care, Cody. Thank you.
You too. Bye.